Good afternoon to you. Welcome to Architect's World on the sunny side. I am Gabriella. 9 minutes gone past 2. As always, I've got with me the world-renowned, the one and only, the one who rules the architectural world. Hello, Architect Bozimo.
When I'm trying to put this off, yep. How are you?
Yeah, he's the kind of man that would always
it's
have.
one of those gadgets, snafus, but
he's
I
gadget
apologize.
savvy, and tech savvy as well.
Madam,
You're welcome.
you can't turn this thing.
No.
But it's very
moving
good to
on.
be here.
Moving on. I will not allow you do that to me.
Very good to be here today, and again, I'm joined by one of our young, upcoming stars in architecture. We call them the new frontier because some of us have been at it for a little bit longer than them, and we look at them with admiration because there's a lot that they see from a fresh perspective that I feel can inform both the world of architecture and of course the general built environment. I'm here with young architect. His name is Tammy Somiari.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me, Gabriella.
You're
and
welcome.
Architect Ebi. It's a pleasure. I don't know if I deserve all that.
More,
credit.
even more.
Oh,
even
yes,
more.
you do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, there was a big story that broke out yesterday, Architect Bozimo.
Arguably the biggest story that unfortunately put us on international news
Yes.
timelines. I saw it online, CNN, Al Jazeera, Yahoo.
International media
and
picked it
of course, our own media picked it up very fast.
Yeah.
Sadly, a prominent building in the heart of one of the most influential and prosperous areas in Nigeria, in Lagos, Ikoyi, collapsed. Apparently, it was a 20-odd story building, and it collapsed. The news is still unfolding, so we don't really know right now what some of the findings will be. But a few people, unfortunately, have died. They say some people are trapped under the rubble and still calling. So thank God they're more alive. But the collapse is always the dramatic, obvious thing that attracts all the attention. Let's not doubt that. But our topic today is closely allied with that, but not centered on the collapse. Today's topic is on professionalism in practice in the built environment.
Amazing. Let's jump right into
And the
it.
reason for that is this. On many occasions on this show, the conversation veers to a point where if you have a disagreement or a misunderstanding between the professionals and the owner, what do you do? And I've always said a professional will formally write to the owner and withdraw their services. This case, shortly after the news came out, a letter was in circulation, and I've seen a newspaper article centered on that letter. So obviously they have reached out to the people, where the structural engineers said they can continue to guarantee the structural stability of the two buildings that are still standing, but will only be willing to guarantee the tall building that collapsed up to the 4th floor. I should also say, in one of those stories going around, it has been confirmed by the Deputy Governor of Lagos that that structure was approved to go up to 20 stories. So it's not that it was 15 stories and it was built more. At least to that extent, they were not going out of what was approved. But evidently, something or some process or some procedures may have been lacking that led to the structural consultancy saying, we withdraw our consultancy service. That's a major red flag. And so, sadly now, let's also not forget, the building was successful to the 16th floor, the 17th floor, the 18th floor, the 19th floor. So, at a glance, everything was going well. Unfortunately, this last point, everything in the ground. The questions we have to ask about, what is professionalism in the practice within the built environment?
And that's a very interesting question. A question that a lot of Nigerians are beginning to ask now, Architect Tammy. Won't
Yeah.
you agree?
Yeah, certainly. A lot of people ask that question because of the culture they see, the behavior of said professionals. So it kind of confuses them. That's why they ask that question, really, what is that word professionalism? If you say it is this, how come I see something else? And what could be the impacts or the results is what we are faced with right now. So that's why we want to really look at it critically so that we throw more light on it and clear every confusion that most Nigerians have about professionalism.
Now, when we talk professionalism, Architect Bozimo, who should bear the bulk of that responsibility? Should it be, the client who is looking to a long-term structure, as it were, or should it be the provider? In this case, the professionals, the architects or structural engineers, as it were, to ensure that professionalism.
Now, really, you can describe professionalism as the combination of the right people, the right procedures, and the right processes, all working in their proper way
to get the right results.
Create the right results.
Yes.
So I've said this before on a lighter note. If just because I have an inkling of what a structural column can look like in a residential building, decide to put certain reinforcement and concrete in a way that won't let the building fall, I am a quack in structural engineering.
Wow. Okay.
Doesn't matter whether I'm a qualified architect. It's only a structural engineer that's licensed to determine structural matters on a project site. And that applies to all of us. So when an owner comes on a project, I've heard some interviews with the owner talking about professionals, but that's side by side. Professionalism is when you let people do their scope of work, give them the room and opportunity and time. From the letter we saw, which is what this conversation centered on, it appears that the structural engineers were not getting proper quality assurance reports, soil cube tests. When you're pouring concrete on a tall building, that sometimes the structure is made out of concrete. You can use steel, but concrete is very common around here. And each time you pour concrete, it's supposed to meet with certain parameters of quality and strength. If you do not get the samples, or if you are prevented in any way from getting the samples, then it means that somehow your professionalism is at risk. And what those people appear to have done was say, look, we are no longer going to be able to stand by this project. And that was on the 4th floor. So the question now becomes, the regulatory authorities are part of it. They, of course, the regulatory authorities don't stay on the site all the time. That's what you have the consultants for. But they have to be aware who is in charge of this project. Is it one of the people registered by the body? So that you have who you can hold responsible. One of the strangest sites I saw was the project signboard. Let me tell you, it's not very often in life that professionals get to build multi-story building, not talk of a 20-story building, not talk of 3 buildings over 15 stories. Normally, in our ethics, you're not allowed to advertise. Am I right, Tammy?
Certainly.
So the opportunity you have to show yourself as being involved is those numbers, no people's identities, only numbers. That right there, to me, is a red flag. Many architects are looking for the opportunity to do that kind of project. And not only will they put their company name, if you give them a chance, they'll put selfie. On a lighter note. But that's the point. So by the time you have a project where the persons cannot be identified at a glance just by passing,
that's a red
flag.
Those are like symptoms, or I'm trying to use a medical analogy here, like symptoms to show you that something is wrong somewhere. When you observe a project, for instance, in this particular scenario, even though the public might not be aware, but there was a letter, that's the first red flag, and then the signboard, which was, open to the public, and then I think there was also the case of the absence of the structural engineer. So these are markers of or red flags, symptoms to tell you that, look, this project something is wrong. You understand? When, like what he said about, making sure that you have the right persons and the right places and all that, and the test and all that. When medical doctors carry out their test, they want to find out what is wrong with this person. If the engineers can't ascertain whether something is wrong with the building or not, certainly that is already the beginning where they will back out. Because no doctor will give or prescribe a drug without the result of a particular test. So this is just to tell you that there were several layers of errors that took place before and it seemed okay Do you understand? Like he said when he said the right persons, right in right places. So you could have the right persons but not in the right places. You could, yeah. And so it might seem like everything, you could even have the right results but not the right persons. So it seems like everything is okay. But then, like we have seen, if it's not the right persons, the right places, you won't get the right result.
It's just a matter of time.
Yes,
like
just
what
a matter
happened
of time.
yesterday.
Yes.
Sadly, what happened yesterday, some people, from what we're hearing, were just resuming. The project had been closed for, is it 4 months? What led to it being closed? Unfortunately, sometimes it's not always because there's something wrong that the project will be closed, unfortunately. And we'll not delve into that. We're on limited time. But whatever reason, what they found, and did they overcome it in letting the building start again? I think the most important thing is that when a significant structure of that nature is going on, there has to be literally full-time oversight by consultants. And this is why you don't know. It's like air. When things don't go wrong, you don't notice. But once your air is restricted, you know how important air is. Consulting works best when it's almost invisible, when it's just doing the right thing. But when things like this happen, that's when you now start asking, what are the procedures? When construction, first from approval, what was approved? By hearing everything there looks like what was approved. Okay, at each stage, are the proper tests being done? Who are those consultants? If those consultants are not doing what they're supposed to do, where are they? Is the alarm being raised in the approval authorities? Because I know Lagos is a busy place with lots of activity going on, but you have so many people who are looking for jobs. You don't have to hire them all the time, but you must hire them even on an ad hoc basis, assign them to one supervisory person, and have oversight of every single project going on. You cannot allow development overtake your regulatory authorities. And sometimes the regulatory authorities in all the parts of the country think that the key role they have is to put an X. No, it's more than the red X. The red X is a sign, stop work. But stop work for what reason? How are you going to address it? What was found? Not just to stop work because you have the power, but is there an issue? If there's an issue, how do we address it? Those regulatory authorities have such a wonderful role, even in approving the kind of project to be done somewhere. I'm not saying that they are going to say yeah or no. If an architect has done a job that works in a place, that's fine. But the nature of the project, the cityscape, everything about it, the approval authorities have a say.
The vision of that
the
city.
vision of that area, the history, how does it inform the projects being done? Those are all parts that the authorities have a role to play in.
Yes.
And the collapse, as I say, is just the most spectacular
Aspect.
of series of things that have gone wrong and have led to a spectacular physical failure.
All right, so at this time, we'd like that you join the conversation. We'll wrap up the conversation at 2:30 today, sadly. We're pressed for time, so we have about, 6 minutes or so to wrap this up. So if you do have questions, you can visit share whatever comments you have as well on WhatsApp. It's 0809 030 6416. The numbers to call is 0817 923 0002, 0003 0007, or 0009. We're also streaming live on Facebook, so you can go watch us as you drop your comments on Facebook at Nigeria Info 92.3 PH. Now, Architect Bozimo, I'm looking at this from a consumer perspective.
Right.
I'm thinking of myself going to work, for instance, and perhaps walking into such a building, such a structure. I don't know anything about the architectural design or
Of course not.
what. I'm not a regulatory body. I'm going there to just earn a living. Who should be held responsible for such cases when they do happen?
First of all, we are going to have to look at all the approvals that were given at each stage, then the consultants, and now look at the procedures, because consultants have certain procedures they're supposed to carry out at each stage. Especially in a tall structure like that, the architect and the structural engineer are going to be jointly held most liable. But everybody on the job, and the contractor too, because the contractor should not be working without supervision. It's important that you have the proper consultants doing the right thing.
All right, let's quickly take this call. Good afternoon, you all.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. I believe, I'm calling from God. I believe if you give me a contract or you give me a job as a government agency, you come and expect the work. Now you are going to arrest the owner, which doesn't know anything about it. Go and arrest that government agency that told you to build a 15-story building, then they are building 30, maybe 20-something. Then you are passing there every time. You're seeing that they're building another thing. You cannot arrest them or stop them work. And the engineer, but most things by motor. So we're going to do that. Then let responsible. Thank you very much. I don't know that from Koro.
All right, thank you very much for that.
As a fellow built environment consultant, I do not agree with the notion that the first thing a consultant will do is go and buy a new car. The first responsibility of every consultant is to carry out your work. However, consulting is a profitable activity. That you gave somebody money doesn't mean he didn't have a job before. So it could be coincidental that they buy a vehicle when you give them. It has no direct, connectivity. The important thing is your work scope and the time frame, and that's what it should be. So as an owner, you should be concerned with, okay, this is what you want the person to do. Are they doing it at the time you people want it to be done? That's really what your concern is.
And I think one thing he was equally raising in what he said, or at least what I understood from what he said, is the fact that the people who come to inspect, do they do a thorough job?
This is
because if you come inspect, you've been sent by a regulatory body to come inspect, you go back with a report. Now it's that report, on the premise of that report, that they base whatever action they take next.
Precisely.
So people who come inspect,
those are the procedures and processes we're talking about. We need to be able to have processes where there's a checklist at each stage. Now, the question is, are those people following those checklists from the regulatory authorities? Because we also need to know, as professionals, are we too doing our work? The reason why our conversation is about professionalism is that, at least in this instance, we have that letter showing that the engineers stepped away.
All right. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please turn off your radio.
Okay. I'm far away from my radio.
Go ahead.
Hello, how are you?
Very well. Go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Hello? Hello?
Go ahead. We can hear you.
Okay, that's all. Let me cover.
Oh dear. All right. So sadly, we don't even have time for that anymore. But there's a comment here on Facebook from engineer Obina Amadi, who says, "Is it not education that should give birth to professionalism, and the same education that we have damaged here in Nigeria?"
I mean, he's making a very good point. We need more education. Even our conversation is educating us and maybe some listeners. At the end of the day, we have to respect the intellect. Intellectual capacity is what takes nations from where they are to where they need to be. So you cannot downplay the value of education and think you're going to get results. At the end of the day, that was a lot of money spent. Those were significant projects. I'm sure there are lots of investors. A lot of that is lost now. So it's most unfortunate. And people will now raise questions about the other structures there. But the engineers did say that they can guarantee those ones.
You know how Nigerians are, so even after you guarantee, I mean, think about it. If you were in Lagos right now and you know that those other buildings were guaranteed, would you confidently go in there?
The only thing is that there are also procedures. There are structural integrity tests that can be done to really ensure that what is in the drawings is what was done. Some of them are non-destructive. They use probes and ultrasonic things. Others are destructive, where they will crack items to inspect and make sure. So with what has happened now, I can assure you there'll be a forensic structural integrity tests.
I think I also want to say something about what she mentioned. First of all, you said about if you are going to the building, you don't know anything about this professionalism. How do you should find out the people that are on the site. Do you have a consultant? Do you have
she's
QA?
saying, like, after it's all built and she doesn't know.
I mean, I'm coming as a receptionist for
Okay,
I'm
fine.
a receptionist.
That's it's still
yes,
it's still in line with what he said about systems. Do you understand? We need to have systems where we at least were able to have evidences and proof that there were tests, there were checks, and warranties, and there are standards that have been followed. Do you understand? So that you can when the building is being handed over, you can have those documents given to the client or the owner to say, yes, we have done this test, yes, and we are sure that the building is.
At the end of the day, a lot of us in society depend on trust. You have to know
Trust
that if people have worked on a project properly, you don't have issues, and that trust has to be ensured by both the professionals and the regulatory authorities. So it's so sad what happened, but it is 100% avoidable. I'll never stop saying that building collapses are 100% avoidable.
Can we have a second part to this conversation next week, Tuesday?
I think that's well worth doing.
I
By
think
that
we
time, we'll have
should.
more information.
Yes,
Not a problem.
yes, because I mean our time is up now and we do have to wrap up. But thank you so much as always,
Always a pleasure. and a
Arctic Bozimo, for
privilege.
being here. Thank you so much, Arctic Tammy.
Tammy.
It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure.
And I
pleasure
look forward to
for me.
next Tuesday already.
Most definitely.
Let's have your social media handles.
I can be reached at Ebi Bozimo on all platforms. At Ebi Bozimo.
Okay, I can be reached at Tammy Somiari on Facebook and Twitter.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
Have
you. Have
yourselves
a
a lovely
wonderful day.
afternoon.
You too,
Me too.
Gabriella.
All right, the sunny side's still here. We've got 30 minutes. We'll be joined in the studio by some guests. We'll be talking World Fertility Day for the next 30 minutes. Don't go away.